got there, but like when they took the blindfolds out, like where the fuck are we? Like this is not right. And it was like an entrance to like a police, not police, sorry, to like a prison cell. But it wasn't like a prison; it was like a bit different, and there were like three floors under the ground. So you can tell that you're on like a ground floor, and then you keep walking down and down. And like, what the fuck's this place? So they took us there, and they chucked us in a cell, and the cell is probably uh, it's like maybe like 3 meters long and 4 meters wide. So it's not very big. And there was about 15 or 16 people in there. There was no beds, nothing like where you can sit, no chairs, nothing. There was just one hole in the ground. It's like a toilet, and it stunk so bad from like people pissing and shitting in it because there's no other place. And before going in, they made everybody take the clothes off, everything apart from just like your underwear.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of Iblis Manifestations Podcast. This is going to be a very serious episode, and some of the tales that will be told on this upcoming conversation may be quite disturbing, and they're certainly not for the faint-hearted. So if you find yourself being easily disturbed, I urge you to click away, because some of the stories that are about to be shared on this podcast, I would say, are extremely important revelations, but also show great sign of character and valor and strength. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute honor and privilege to welcome none other than my friend, my brother, and my bandmate, Sully, to Iblis Manifestations. For those of you who are not aware, Sully is the bass player and the backing vocalist in TRIVAX, and he has also performed in Weird Stuff, which is also another side project which I'm involved with, which you'll hear more of in the future. And he also performed alongside other bands such as Ereshkigal and Sathamil previously during his time in the United Kingdom. Sully's origins lead him back to Syria, where he was born and raised in the city of Latakia. Sully grew up there as a fan of alternative music as well as a musician. However, his general stance and his approach to life were not something that were compatible with the governing laws of that country. Much so like my own, and the way that I clashed with the authorities in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where I grew up. So him and I have always shared a very unique and special background with one another. However different they may have been, there are a lot of similar characteristics which bind us together. And on this episode, you will get to hear the detailed accounts of Sully's experiences in Syria, where he was taken as a prisoner and jailed and even tortured, simply just for being an alternative metalhead or a musician. And I have to say, what I heard from him on this episode, even though we are already friends for many years and we've shared the stage many times, we've spoken many times, this was still, out of the 56 episodes of Iblis Manifestations, the hardest thing I have ever had to listen to. And this is probably the first time you will visibly see me upset and disgusted and angry at the circumstances when he is sharing some of his tale. So Hence why I put in the disclaimer at the beginning of this episode. But worry not, because there is a point to all of this, and that's the fact that this story is one where it's a powerful example of strength, valor, and overcoming. Because that's exactly what he has done. Not only he went through those experiences, he also came over here, and then he continued his life. He continued his path as a musician, regardless of what he was put through. And now we are about to release our second full-length album with TRIVAX, which is also our first album with Sully on bass. And this is now a moment for you to see how that retribution is going to work out. So, this is a very exciting episode for me to be bringing to you guys. If you're joining us here, I thank you very much, and I hope that you're going to enjoy this one. And in line with the topic of the new TRIVAX album, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited and proud to be giving you the newest music video and single off of that album, titled Azrael. Enjoy. Hail, Master Death. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the newest single and video by TRIVAX titled Azrael. Azrael is the Eastern angel of death, known in all of the Abrahamic religions, and is the true embodiment of dying. This is the first track taken from the album Eloah Burns Out, which will be out via Cult Never Dies on the 29th of September 2023. And ladies and gentlemen, we are very stoked to be bringing this to you. If you find that this story is something that resonates with you personally, I do recommend you highly to consider sharing this episode around and letting people know about it and letting people know about what TRIVAX has upcoming. More importantly than that, this was a great opportunity for us to finally hear Sully's tale for the first time publicly and know what kind of a person he truly is, which is one that I admire and I'm proud to call my friend and my brother. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Sully to Iblis Manifestations. Right. So, for all the years, I have always been the mouthpiece of TRIVAX, and I've always been the one talking to the public, and everyone's already heard me speak for hours at this point, probably. And you know, I think it's only fair now with the new album coming out that we get the opportunity to sort of pass the spotlight to you. So, with that out of the way, for the official introduction, Sully, welcome to Iblis Manifestations, my brother. How you doing this evening?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm great. This cut is really getting to me, though, man. I'm fucking... Yeah, I'm getting really grumpy at work and shit. And I'm about 3 months in now. I'm at like 70. I'm actually lower than 77 kilos, which is the lightest I've been since I was a teenager, and probably the entire time you've known me. So that's getting to me. But other than that, I'm feeling pretty good, and you know, I'm pretty fucking excited to finally get this album out there and get people finally expose people's ears and souls to this thing that we've created.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think, obviously at the point that this video or interview will have come out, the music video for Azrael will have come out as well. So we can probably talk about that, you know, just because it's probably going to be quite fresh for a lot of people. I think one thing we can probably say for sure is that both you and I are officially going to be blacklisted from every Middle Eastern country in existence, right?
Can't wait. That's the way to do it.
I think so. I think that is the way we have done it, don't you think?
That's the only way.
Yeah.
There's no other way. That's the only way.
Well, think of it like this, you know, like for anyone else listening, obviously the context of the song is purely just a fascination of death and embracing all of its characteristics. But for where we come from, you know, like that degree of exploration is far too dangerous for them. Like you couldn't explain to someone in today's society the at least the perception of the degree of extremism that this actually conveys in those cultures. And I think we've done a if a Westerner audience will watch this, they'll probably think, oh yeah, this is a cool black metal video. But if someone, especially someone who's lived in very confined Islamic and religious spaces over, whether it's in Iran or Syria or any other one of those Middle Eastern countries, watches this, I think it's kind of gonna, I don't know, I think it's gonna rustle some jimmies. Don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people that lived under that sort of suppression for so many years, seeing like a music video coming out from a band that comes from that region, and the lyrical and the ideological concept behind it, it's so deep for them. It's going to be yeah, it's going to cause some fun, I think.
I hope so. Because here's the thing as well. Like, for them, it's not just an idea. This is what everyone has grown up with. I mean, it's such a... people perhaps might not quite get that perspective if they've lived and existed in free society, supposedly anyway, throughout most of their life. This is still very much a free society compared to what some of those countries are like, and that whole system is very much when you've got, especially in the case of Iran, where you've got the Islamic Republic, is very much Orwellian or a Matrix type of a thing, where it's like you cannot speak against it, and obviously nowadays people have become more brave and they're revolting against it, but there's still that inherent fear of, oh, that's an area you should not mess with, where there's religion, where there's God, where there's death, you should not mess with that. And that's exactly where we have gone with the art of TRIVAX, and particularly the video for Azrael.
Yeah, definitely. It's like you touched on the three bases really in one thing, Yeah. So I'm sure the Iranian president will be very pleased to to hear the song and give some feedback. That'll be nice for them.
I know. Well, this is the thing. Like, this is what's hilarious about it, and what's absolutely ironic, and I hope people pay attention to this. But fucking, you have both Iran and you have Syria. I mean, first of all, most people think we're brothers, which in a sense, I guess we are. But genetically speaking, how should I put it? Our hometowns are about 3.5-4 hours flight away from each other. So then that's a long time, obviously. But I think it's that sort of urge and drive that you and I have both always had to fucking rebel against that bullshit. So, for example, the back home you might have Iran supplying Syria with weapons, just to be fucking uncivil cunts, and then over here you and I are playing black and death metal, which kind of goes very much against, I think, what's over there. Even though we're not inherently speaking about anything political, I think the movement in itself already sort of sits into that box. I mean, I don't know. What's your sort of take on that? Because it's a very complex subject.
It is. I think like the way we kind of project our, I don't know, inner thoughts and ideas and channel it through music, and the way that get perceived, I think, by people over there, that's what's going to make the difference, really, regardless if it's like directly political against the Syrian or the Iranian governments. It's the idea behind it, what we are delivering through the music is gonna make an impact, and that's what we always wanted to do, really, make an impact and make a change. Maybe not direct, or maybe not like straight away, maybe in the long future, but it will definitely make a change, even to one person over there or 10.
Absolutely. I think what it is, though, is exactly to your point. It's that we are not a band who is political as such, and we're not even an anti-religious band. This is probably another thing to point out there. But it's one of them where the simple act of us exploring the areas that we are exploring already makes us those things, if that makes sense. Because it's like over there, you're not supposed to go and sing about Israel in the same way that you do. I mean, Israel is is a very, very feared character, that people are absolutely terrified of. So to have lyrics like that where you embrace such an aspect of it is, I can totally see how that could mindfuck a lot of people. But again, the purpose of that is not to mindfuck people. On one hand, we're purely just exploring that inner part of ourselves and trying to break off these mental shackles and just really become liberated from a lot of that. So that's why sometimes liberation takes a certain degree of turning around and looking at your own fears and laughing at them in the face, which is, I think, what a lot of the work of TRIVAX and what we've done has always been. And I think it's the lead by example aspect of it which makes it what
Yeah.
it is, which, like you said, could actually create a lot of change, whether it's over there or I think even over here. It's the same thing, because I think it brings forth that value of what freedom is, what it means, and what it means to us, and that people should really fight for it, and it's something that is worth life and death always.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, following on your point about Israel being, the kind of scary figure, even like when I was a kid, we used to get like told by like, older people, like older uncles or aunties say, oh, if when you die, Israel will come and take your soul from your heart. Just to scare you off that concept of death. So Israel always been like, when you're a kid, always get that, you've got that thought in your head. This is like a bad thing. It's a bad figure, a bad representation of, some unhuman kind of entity in a way. So doing this and, the way we are doing it, it's kind of like we are dancing with death. We are there. We are becoming one with death, basically.
Exactly. Because and that in itself is such a powerful thing, that there's so much that you can learn from that whilst you eliminate that fear. And in fact, if anything, I think that once you explore the shadows, I think that in itself can very much actually be a life affirming thing as well. Because it's not for the sake of being life affirming, but rather the more you see the shadow side, I think the more you can sort of understand or embrace the light as well. It's about all of those things. It's not one dimensional by any means. And it's like you get to live, but you get to live on a different realm completely, that where freedom is everything. And that's, again, probably ad nauseum by this point, but that's our point. We stand for freedom, and that's the most important thing to us. And speaking of which, I think one very important thing that we can probably get into, of all of the different facets of TRIVAX and both of our backgrounds and the concept of what it is that we work on, I think is just simply your background as a person. Like, forget being a musician and being a member of TRIVAX, but you as a person, I think, have a fascinating background that even though you're my brother, and we've spent all this time together, it's still something that I think about a lot, and I think it's something that a lot of people could learn from, particularly because some of those experiences that you had over there, especially with the authorities and things like that, which we will get into. But just explain to us, for anyone who might not have a clue of what it is like growing up in Syria, especially as a rebellious metalhead as you were, and as I was in Iran. Just explain to us what that was like for you over there.
At the beginning, it was really kind of like strange thing for people to be like listening to different music, not even metal or like extreme metal. I'm just talking like hard rock, anything like loud music as they call it. It was like a really, people look at you like differently, like what's this guy, what are they doing? Are they like doing all that blasphemous stuff, listening to like, you know, devil worshipping music, even though some music wasn't even nothing to do with the devil or any blasphemy or anything like that. So that was like early 2000s when I started getting into it. So like during that time, with the way we used to like get music, it was not, you know, we couldn't go to the shop and, you know, buy a vinyl or buy a CD or a tape from the shop. There was nothing like that. Everything was like downloaded using a dial-up ancient modem connection that takes like about 10 hours just to download a 2-minute song, you know. So
I
finding
remember.
songs that, you know, like I couldn't really get to like listen to a whole album for a band straight away. The early days, I used to get like a song from each band and okay, I like these. I might download another song, wait another day to just to listen to the whole song, you know. And sometimes the download crashes if someone phones or a landline and I had to start it all over again midway through. So yeah, that was really weird. And then the more I got into it, the more I started to understand like different genres and different subgenres, and you know, bands from different countries and different lyrical concepts and all that stuff. And when we start getting a bit better internet, and actually you can go in and download stuff, everything was downloaded. I'd never seen a real record on any format until I came to the UK. I've never seen what the actual like inlay is or like the album cover, the lyrical sheets, none of that stuff. It was all like everything pictures before. And
Same
I
here.
still
I like, yeah. Like
yeah,
for me, I
still
actually the first album that I came to the UK first time in 2010, and that was just a quick 2 weeks visit, and that was actually the first time I went to an HMV. And to your point, that's the first I actually got to see what albums actually look like in person, you know, and that was Venom's Black Metal. Like I mean, it's like by that point it's already been out for a million years, but still,
yeah.
it felt pretty iconic to get that. And then I think I ended up also buying Marduk's Wormwood because that will have been out for around a similar time. But please carry on.
Yeah. So like the more things like start getting a bit more advanced in a way. Not really advanced, but like there was a better internet than it was before. So we can get more stuff, get like DVDs. So watching like whole concerts and stuff online on YouTube or downloading like full footage. So
Yeah.
that's when we start getting more into it. I start making friends from my town, you know, who have like similar interests, especially like in like black metal and death metal. And then we used to hang out and, you know, exchange artists that someone discovered somewhere on like some Russian cryptic torrent websites where you used to get a lot of stuff from there, and going on like forums and talking to people from like US and UK and exchange like artists. Something I found like Russian underground raw black metal band, and they found some weird raw black metal band from somewhere like in Latin America. So we used
Yeah,
to
yeah.
like exchange artists and, you know, get into it. So yeah, going on like about like the kind of society side of things, where we used to hang out like one of the streets in my town. It's like a where all like the modern people kind of hang out. There's like loads of like modern restaurants and stuff, but we used to be like the odd group out of everybody, just on the street hanging out. We're all like dressed up in like metal t-shirts, like, you know, there's just a typical metalhead style black jeans and boots, and,
How
you know,
did you
having
used to
chains. And
even get hold of the T-shirts over there?
it was all bootleg. It was all like either from Turkey, which is probably bootleg, or bootleg that's printed over there. And that was really hard to get hold of, like especially black metal t-shirts. That was like gold if you managed to get like a Marduk or a Dissection or a Watain t-shirt back then. Whoa, it's like you hit the jackpot, you know, finding that sort of stuff. Most of it were like just Metallica, Iron Maiden, Ice of Earth, that sort of stuff. They were like the really popular t-shirts where you can get.
Did I ever
So
tell you
yeah,
the
we try and get.
story of? Did I ever tell you the story of how I found that Marduk T-shirt? That was fucking right. Basically, this was around 2012. Some of my friends, obviously, they knew I was a metalhead, you know, and they knew TRIVAX existed already by that point, and they sort of convinced me to go to this part of Tehran with them is called Jomhuri. And in this area, there was this phone shop, but then beneath that phone shop, it was this fucking random bootleg t-shirt place that you could only go by recommendation of someone else. You weren't allowed in the shop unless someone else recommended you and said, hey, he's with me, he can come in. And then they would like open up the place, and then you'd go in and they'd have all these t-shirts. It was fucking like great, proper underground, just to buy t-shirts for metal bands. And I will never forget, it was the funniest, most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, where I was browsing through the shirts and the hoodies, and I ended up actually getting a bootleg Mayhem hoodie from there for like a tenner or something at the time. And but then I was looking through all of the options that they had, and they were all like really weird and arsey and really on edge, understandably so. So I was just trying to like browse really quickly through all these. So they've got like Arch Enemy, Carcass, Obituary, Nile. Those were the kind of bands that they had, which I liked, but at that point I had kind of like pushed past that a little bit, so I was more into the likes of Behegsen and Sergeist and that and Watain, and that's what I was drawn to. And then fucking I'm scrolling through all of these shirts, and then like one of the last ones I come to, I'm like, oh yeah, that logo looks familiar. And then I sort of turn it around. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Marduk. And then I pull the thing out and I hold it, and one of my friends at the time, Mehdi, was looking at it as well. And this it's the old Marduk logo with the inverted cross and the 666. Except they had printed it on the shirt upside down. So you had a normal cross and a 999 next to it. And it was just, it was fucking hilarious. I remember saying to him, like, look at this. This is so fucking dumb. But then I realized that there were more copies of the same shirt with an upside down Marduk logo. And I feel like I should have just bought it then, just for comedic effects. Yeah, I missed the trick on that one. But that's the kind of like shit that you deal with. Yes. I'm sure they'll appreciate it regardless. But yeah, it's crazy, like the degree of primitivism, and all these weird fucking things that you'll find with that. So did you ever get into any shit? Obviously, like you said, you were always the outcast of like pretty much everywhere that you went to, which is pretty fucking cool considering the sort of bands that you will have listened to. I mean, what were you even listening to by this point?
I mean, just if you want to like delve in really like to the early days, like probably the first bands I started discovering, it was the likes of Iron Maiden. They were one of the first ones. Cradle of Filth. They were one of the first kind of extreme metal bands I'd listened to. Mm-hmm. And a funny fact, I didn't even know Danny Filth was a male to start with. I thought it was a woman. It was like young Danny Filth when he was really young. He had a super feminine face. Or like, this singer's got a really strange. Is she like a woman? Is it a man? What is it? I couldn't really tell to start with. Then I did my research and found out that was an actual man and not a female doing it. So that was an interesting one. And yeah, I started getting to like Dimmu Borgir, Dissection. They were like not straight away, but they were like pretty much at the same time. And once I got to Dissection and start listening to more Dissection albums and getting into them properly and start like doing some reading about like what John was into and what stuff he's done and why he was in prison. And during that time, one of my friends from back then, his cousin, he was actually auditioning to play with Dissection, but that was before Jon died. And then he couldn't get it. It was something to do with his name in 9/11 and all that stuff. He couldn't really get to move on to Europe, basically. He was in Australia. He wanted to move to Europe, but he couldn't because I think his name was like Mohammed or something. So, yeah, that was just after 9/11. So,
yeah, well, I think Dissection, he started reforming with musicians around 2002 or 3, which is literally just after 9/11. So, yeah. I remember you telling me that story. I mean, I remember watching the audition tapes of your mate that you showed
And
me
that
before.
tape, I actually watched it on VHS
Did you?
on
That's
a
cool as
CD.
fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like really
yeah.
old school stuff. Yeah,
It is. It is. It's a different world almost to now. But I
yeah,
remember watching that, and he was a fantastic guitar player. But and it would have been crazy to have some Syrian guy doing the guitars for Dissection. But at the
yeah.
end, I think Seth was probably like the perfect guitarist he could have had
Oh
anyway.
yeah,
You know, like
100%. Yeah,
without a doubt.
definitely.
Just
Yeah,
from like characteristics to vibe, musicianship, ideology, everything. Like that guy was like literally at that time he was like built perfectly just to be the guitarist of Dissection, and I think he made a pretty big commitment as well, coming over from Italy, and obviously we can get into the Dissection thing since we're both fanatics, but it's very interesting, but what a cool band to discover and get into in that particular environment that you were in, because that was a band that took it seriously, you know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and
And
it's
yeah, sorry, I was going to say, it's just before they did the final show, I tried really hard because I was like getting really like more fan of the band, and I really wanted to see them live. But I was really young. I was like 14 years old then, and there was no chance I can, travel all the way to Stockholm on my own just to go and see a show. If I was maybe in UK or somewhere in Europe, it would have been more possible, really. But being in that sort of region and being very young, also, it would have just impossible for me to, to go to that show, which is yeah. And then when I actually started getting a bit older and I could travel on my own, it was too late, you know. But
and don't you find it weird that obviously you and I have lived over here for how many years now, but that there were some fucking cunts that actually went to see them in Bradford of all
yeah,
places, right? And that was
yeah,
like probably the best show on that tour that they did, because that's when they had Attila from Mayhem joining them, and I think they all jumped on stage and did Elizabeth Bathory, and it's like in
yeah,
Bradford of all
I know,
places.
yeah,
It's crazy, man, crazy. But I relate to that because I had the same situation, because I wanted to go see in I mean to us the closest country that was doing any shows like that was Turkey always, and there was Unirock at the end of like in late 2000s, and I remember really wanting to go to see Unirock. I think at that time you had like Behemoth, Belphegor, maybe Dark
yeah,
Funeral, I think, and
yeah.
Mayhem definitely played there, and all.
2010, because I went there, so I remember the lineup.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm so jealous, man. I that year, like, I would have. I mean, look, all these bands, I have since seen them so many times. I've pretty much met everyone from these bands, and to me that's been great. But it's to me, it still feels like I somehow carry this sort of weird. I can't quite describe it. This sense of this weight on this chip on my shoulder from not being able to access the thing that I pretty much held dear the most, which was
mm.
extreme metal. Does that make sense? I don't know if you ever
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
that way sometimes.
yeah. And I know what you mean. It's I, when some kind of event or like congregation happens, and if you really wanted to be there, and then the stuff happens, and then you go back after so many years, and you always have that little bit of regret in you, like, why the fuck did not go and
Yeah.
make it happen, really. You know what I mean? I probably want to be even been double at all, but you still have that kind of little thing in the back of your head saying you should have fucking gone, you idiot. You know?
I have that with Motorhead. It's
Yeah,
probably like I don't have many regrets in my life. In fact, I don't have any, because even there are places where I fucked up, I learned from them at least, and it's made me a better person. But I learned nothing from missing Motorhead. I hate that I
yeah,
missed them completely, and all because I just decided to. I won't get into details, but yeah, I decided to spend the evening with some chick, who, yeah, was. I think we've had a few evenings like that, so it's fine. But
yeah.
yeah, it was Motorhead. I can't believe it. Yeah.
Maybe we'll
Yeah.
meet them in a different life or a different universe and play a
Maybe.
show with them.
Maybe.
Play
Imagine
a
we
show
would.
in hell.
Yeah. Or Al Jannah. We'll play a show
Oh,
with
maybe, yeah.
Motorhead in Al Jannah.
Or in heaven. Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Absolutely. So obviously, whilst you're going through all of this over there, it's one thing, I think, discovering yourself, going through these different bands, and then just finding out what this whole metal thing even is, and then getting into black metal of all things. The unfortunate nature of things is that when you are in an Islamic country, this is something that eventually, the more you become expressive, you're going to find yourself a lot of terrible consequences. And obviously, I'm aware that you had a lot of that, and I think you actually had a much tougher time than I did in Iran when it came to those kind of things. I somehow always evaded the worst of it, but um, I know that you had a pretty terrible time with the authorities over there just for being a metalhead. So just let's get into that and try to explain that if you can, and try to cover all the areas of like what even is the legal precautions of such a thing. How can they justify treating you the way that they did just for basically being an alternative person?
Yeah, it all started when we kind of formed like a cover band to play some like cover songs like some Metallica tracks, Queen, Europe, nothing like super extreme. So we used to like rehearse in one of my friends' like basement. No earplugs, nothing. It was so loud every time we used to come out after like a couple of hours from the drum kit. Everybody's ears ringing so bad. Takes like 2 days just to actually you can hear properly again. So that's where all things started to get a bit more bleak. So we did a few rehearsals and we was trying to like organize like an event. A couple of bands they wanted to play cover songs, so we put all the songs that we were going to play, and we sent it to get like a planning permission from the government, from the police. Just we sent all songs, all lyrics translated to Arabic, just so they read everywhere. There's nothing about politics or the president or anything like that. And we even had to pay some people just so they can approve it.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. We lost the case and we never got the permission to perform that little concert. Since then, we had kind of like the police eyes opened at us. Like, okay, these guys are up to no good. They're planning something, so we'll keep them under watch. And then the days gone past, and we still like doing our usual routine, going out. We used to go to that same street pretty much every day at evening time, hang out with friends, like drinking beer and smoking and stuff. Um,
It's
and
wild that
one
you
at
were even
times,
allowed to drink beer.
yeah,
That in
it
itself
back
is.
then. Back then, it wasn't too bad in the town I was living in because it's a little bit mixed between Christians and Muslims. So there's like you
Mhm.
can buy alcohol from shops and stuff. It wasn't like not allowed for alcohol. That was kind of okay, but doing other stuff was not okay. You know.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, one at times we're just there in a car, like estate, long estate car with like all like tinted windows, stopped, and five guys came out of the car. They're like, "What you guys doing here? You're not supposed to be here. Why you all like congregating?" And we're like, "We're not doing anything. We're just standing here. There's people walking past, and we're not doing anything illegal. If we are, please tell me what we're doing." We're like, "We're not supposed to congregate more than like 3, 4 people. It's not, it might cause something not good." Like, okay, yeah, we'll just walk away then. So that was the first kind of episode we experienced with the government. There was no arrest at that point. Uh, they've just told us like basically not don't do it again. Well, yeah, okay, sure, whatever.
Just
So
disperse,
they
basically.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Which is a
So
very common. That's a very common thread of any kind of
It is.
totalitarianism, because
Yeah.
we experience very similarly. Like I actually got chased by the fucking police one time, and
Yeah.
just because you're hanging out in groups, but there's something about that, that people who are in power and control don't really want this, and we can actually relate that a lot to the last few years. But let's not get into that. Just tell us a little bit how it went on from there afterwards.
So yeah, from there onwards, the time has gone past, and not long after it, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, we were doing the same thing because that was one of the very few things we could really do. There was no like metal bars or any places for like alternative people to go and chill really, apart from on the streets or like parks.
Yeah.
Or like if you are in someone's house or something like that, but there were nothing, in the public, any kind of social activity you can really do outside. So yeah, we were just hanging out, and all of a sudden, two cars came out, and they both pulled in really quick. About 10 officers or 9 officers came out, and then they start talking to us, and you're like, "You're not supposed to be here. You should go." And we're like, "Okay, yeah, we'll go." And then all of a sudden, another big van, like a big police van, to put people in, pulled in, blocked the street, middle of the street, and then more police came out of them, and they weren't like normal officer police, more like a undercover kind of police. None of them were wearing any kind of uniform, any badges, anything. If you see them, you won't even tell they're police. But they all had guns and everything on them. So yeah, they all started getting people in. There was about 7 of us. We all got chucked in the van and got taken to like undercover police facility somewhere, and we didn't know where the place was because we were all like blindfolded. So they blindfolded everybody before we left. The vans got there, but like when they took the blindfolds out, like where the fuck are we? Like this is not right. And it was like an entrance to like a police not police, sorry, to like a prison cell. But it wasn't like a prison; it was like a bit different, and there were like three floors under the ground, so you can tell that you're on like a ground floor, and then you keep walking down and down. And like, what the fuck's this place? So they took us there, and they chucked us in a cell, and the cell is probably uh, it's like maybe like 3 meters long and 4 meters wide. So it's not very big. And there was about 15 or 16 people in there. There was no beds, nothing like where you can sit, no chairs, nothing. There was just one hole in the ground. It's like a toilet, and it stunk so bad from like people pissing and shitting in it because there's no other place. And before going in, they made everybody take the clothes off, everything apart from just like your underwear. They put us there and they just chucked us and left us to stay there. No one asked like why you're here and what you just there, and someone will come and talk to you at some point. That's what they said to us. So we waited there. We slept overnight. Also, we couldn't sleep. We just waited overnight till the next day, and then like a officer, kind of what is officer sergeant maybe or something like that. He came in with two massive fucking guys behind him, and they were like, "So what are you plotting? Are you plotting like some kind of revolution against the president, eh?" And I was like, I'm not really following. What do you mean?" And they were like, "Don't be clever." And then one of the guys fucking cracked me with massive smack on my face just because that I answered him and said, I don't know what we're talking about, and they proper cracked me. I think that gave me like a brain hemorrhage. Slap his hand is like a I don't know, like a giant. So that cracked me like, okay, better shut up then. And then he kept banging on about like, okay, you plotting some kind of like devil worshipping activities in northern Syria, and you go in and doing some like sacrifices in desert. And I was looking because I was there. My brother was also there. My brother wasn't even like a metalhead. He likes the music, but it was just happens for him to be hanging out with us at that point. So he was also there witnessing all that. And they were like, "Oh, we need to know who's like your cult leader." And I was like, "I'm not really sure what do you mean? Like we're not a cult. we don't have a leader. We just, we like, this kind of music. We don't have any kind of revolutionary plans or anything like that. We just like to listen to this sort of music. We're all like, we're college or university students. We're not really, we don't have anything against the government. Even if we did, we can't really say that to them, especially when we're in that sort of circumstance.
Yeah.
And yeah, the guy didn't really digest what we said to him. It was, yeah, okay, just get them in the car tire. I didn't know what the car tire was to start with. Like, what does it mean? And then a guy brings in like a car tire, and then I wasn't the first one to get the like the stuff that they've done on him to start with. It wasn't one of my friends, and so they put his legs inside the tire, and it goes all the way up to like his thighs. So it's kind of like restricting him from moving. It's a really kind of horrible, kind of violent way of like torture. And then they bring like a really thick metal bar, and then they just start beating fuck out of him on his legs, on his stomach, on his neck, on his back, on his arms, like really strong hits. You can hear like the actual thing hitting his skin so loud. And he was crying so loud, he just passed out from the pain. It was unbearable. So he's got to passed out, and then what they've done, they came with a massive bucket of icy water, and they just straight after, like it didn't even give him a minute to rest. Straight after, just to wake him back up again, and they start whacking him again. And then, oh, that's enough. He can't take it anymore, so we'll leave him for a bit. So they left him outside, and then they got hold of me and did the same thing with me. And I said to him, I'm not doing anything that really shouldn't really hit me. I'm innocent. I've not done anything wrong. Why are you hitting me? It's not right. But like, it is right. Shut the fuck up and just do as we say. You're like, okay. So yeah, I put the car tire between my legs. Put my legs in between, and they start just beating the fuck out of me. It was so painful. Like, you scream and you cry, but like, if the more you cry, the more the harder they hit you. So they were hitting you, but they wanted you to stay quiet while they're doing it. But the pain was like, even if you like that sort of pain, I don't think it was any kind of bearable pain for anybody. It was so, especially when you're quite young and you don't experience any kind of horrible things done to you before. So yeah, that was the thing they've done to me. Hit everywhere. Like, I've got the scars anymore, but like when I first came to UK, I still had some scars on my back from the thing, because it was a few months before I moved to UK when it happened. And that was pretty much the routine. They used like different like kind of torture techniques. The worst one was the tire, because it was with a metal bar. Other stuff they used were like really strong belts, obviously punching, kicks, smacking. And the guys who they were torturing, they were like really big guys. Like some of their fucking hands is so big. Like if they crack a fucking laptop screen, they will like literally destroy it with like one touch. That sort of size. And that carried on for days and days, and and we couldn't do anything. The way we got woken up, you get tortured every day with various ways and methods, and then you get thrown back in that cell. And that was like in like February time, so it was really cold. There was no heating, nothing. Everyone was like proper shivering from coldness. And then it's just kind of on repeat every day for days and days, until eventually, like, my parents were like, they didn't know where we were. They were asking around. They thought we died to start with. So they went to like every hospital asking if we're there, if the body's there. No one knew. And then someone managed to find some kind of contact inside one of my friends' relatives, and then he kind of told everybody's families that where the kids are in that place, in that facility. But that was after like maybe like 2-3 weeks of being there. So when they actually knew, at least we're still alive, but they didn't know what state we were in. They just knew we were alive, which is for them it was assuring. But they didn't know what kind of crime we committed. No one knew. So after a lot of kind of negotiations with like kind of middle people in between the families and the people from there, and so much bribe. They bribed so many people. They paid so much money, like my family as well as the other families. Probably back then, like the equivalent each. So my dad paid. I think he paid about maybe like £5,000 equivalent to that just to get me and my brother out. And but not just me, they were like all of us. So everybody had to pay about the similar amount just so they can get us out from there. So after like a month and a bit, they eventually managed to release us from there. And but it wasn't even recorded as a criminal record because it wasn't like a normal prison. We didn't go to court. There was nothing there. There was nothing recorded. So like if we went to say, okay, we want to open a case against you, they were like, well, there's no record of it. How can you prove that that's been done to you? You can't prove it. You know. And then after that, my daddy said, "It's just I don't think it's safe for you to stay here. You should go somewhere else and live your life elsewhere." And then that's when I came to UK to study over here. And yeah, I've been here ever since.
I'm so glad you're here, man.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers. It's very. I think probably this is the first time I've like publicly spoken about this for like other people to hear it, because I don't like people to think that I'm using it as some kind of way of like getting sympathy from people or people feeling sorry for me that I've been tortured. I want people to know me for who I am now. I don't want people, oh, okay, because this guy was tortured or went to prison, that's why, we feel sorry for him or we like him more. I never wanted to have that sort of exposure just for that reason specifically. And people like, for example, like in Norway, when Wagner churches and went to prison, it got so popular just for that reason. But where in my case, I didn't do anything, and I went to prison just for liking metal music without committing any crime. Maybe if I did a crime, probably it might have been easier, But
were you scared at that time?
Yeah,
when you were going through that.
I didn't know what to feel or what to do or how to react. We just had to go with the flow and accept what we were going through. There was no other way. There were no way. There were no point fighting it in any sense. It was just have to accept your fate and just go along with it. Really. Yeah. So yeah, it was. Yeah, it was really not scary, but more like mind changing in a way. Changed the way I look at like how they treat people like behind closed doors, because it's not just us. There were like people from different things that they've done any kind of activity against governments, any rebellious activity either online or if they knew had some kind of like tip off that these people tried plotting something. There were a few people there and they were getting tortured, but they weren't metalheads. They were just like normal people. So yeah, it was really really strange.
Well, I have to bring myself together, man, because you have obviously told me the story before, but I guess it's not something we talk about that often, and hearing that, and and I'm only hearing it, and I'm already devastated. I cannot begin to imagine what it must have been like to live through that, and I feel fucking furious, and in a degree that I cannot even describe, because we're still trying to have a conversation here and we want it to make sense, but I've told you this, but I have honestly all the respect in the world for you, because you went through that and you've gone through everything else that you've gone through after that, because I know it's not like you came to the UK and then everything was just all like fun and dandy, and obviously better than still being tortured in some fucking Syrian prison. But you know what, all the respect to you as my brother that you do not choose to be a victim in these circumstances, because so many other people would have gone the other way. So many other people would have given up. So many other people would have even stopped listening to this music or partaking in these activities, but you still carried on. And that is a powerful fucking statement. And if there's also one very important thing that I can take from this, is that trying to understand the psychology of, like, I mean, it's fucking horrendous to even think about. But when you say that the more you scream, the harder to hit you, that really fucking infuriates me, and it's upsetting. But what that shows me is what humans are willing to do when they're in a position of power. And it's that saying, I don't think you might hear it a lot, but I don't think it's overused, because it is always relevant. And it's that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's exactly the case. Some piece of shit had the utmost leverage over you guys in there, and all of them, they did, and all they did was to abuse the fuck out of that and to cause as much pain as possible. And I think that, yeah, you might say that they were trying to find some information if you were plotting against the government. Bullshit. That was them just purely taking out their own shit out of their own system and using and abusing their power in that situation. And the same happens not only in Iran, but in fact all over the world, but it just has different formats. And
Yep.
one of the things that happens is as I alluded to earlier, this is very much a symptom of totalitarianism. This is what totalitarianism means, and it's very much like the case of the pharaohs as well. I feel, it's like, let's send everyone out to kill the firstborn son, so what they're doing is they're going out on the streets, just grabbing a random group of like 7 guys who just like rock and metal, and imprisoning them and torturing them just in case they might be plotting against the government. Like, you fucking cunts. And this is why I always say to people here, like, I don't consider myself a preachy person, but there's one thing I'm fucking preachy about, and that's freedom. And that's something that you cannot just give away, because what you described there is what our world and society will turn into. Yes, maybe it's a symptom of an Islamic government. Yes, maybe it is that. Yes, maybe it's those countries over there. But that is something that is inherently within all of us as human beings. And this is why we have to be fucking careful with things as simple as censorship. On the surface, that might seem like a simple thing, like, oh, well, censorship couldn't be that bad. But that's exactly what it is. It's the same fundamentals. And once you break the game so much that you introduce something such as censorship into it, then eventually down the line, it is places like this that it leads to. And these things only happen because people are silent about it, and like you said, had your friend not found out about that, and started reaching out to people's families who were there, who knows would have fucking happened after that.
Yeah, we could have stayed there for months and months. We could have even got killed there. It's some people that go into that particular like security police department. Not many people manage to get out as a whole. In a sense that I might have like mental health issues, or some people might have like broken bones or broken ribs. So in a way, I would say we were quite lucky. I mean, we weren't lucky, but if you compare it to that sort of context, we might have some bruised ribs and bruised bones, but we didn't have any broken limbs when we left. But they broke us. Basically, they broke us mentally, and it took a while for us to actually to feel human again, and having your freedom and having your senses back, where you can actually do things and wake up, for example, in the morning. Like most times when we were still there, like the meals they were giving us, it was just like rice, like boiled rice, and they used to put hairs in the rice just on purpose, just for, I don't know if it was like a pubic hair or like a body hair or whatever hair it was. Every day there's like a big kind of bowl of rice, boiled rice, and just like loads of hair in it. And that was the only meal. Either eat it or just fucking starve to death. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
So fucking disturbing to hear, man. Listen, I've done however many episodes of this thing, and this is still and you're like one of my closest friends. You're arguably my closest friend, and I've known you however many fucking years, and this is still the toughest thing I've had to listen to on here, and I'm not exaggerating at all. That's really hard, and I can't imagine because the thing is as well, like for people who might not know you personally, like you literally, you like since you've been here, you don't have like one single criminal record. You've never done anything out of the order, like you've, if anything, you've done so well in excelling for yourself, and not only have you done well as a musician, but also as a person, but also as even career-wise, like what you're doing with IT now is fucking great. I mean, I don't know how much you want to disclose that, and we don't necessarily have to do that, but the fact that you've come from that and you've done this for yourself is so fucking admirable, and I have so much respect for you for that. And I hope that to the people listening this, they can learn something from that, and learn that, it's all about the perspective, like you can call yourself a victim in life and say, oh wow, this thing that happened to me is my boyfriend broke up with me, so now I'm going to class myself as a victim for the rest of my life. Come and listen to Sully's story and tell me that doesn't feel pathetic to you. And again, each person to their own. Every person's story is valid. I'm not saying that's not the case, but it's a matter of perspective. It's the example that you set by going through that, yet coming out and doing this. And honestly, man, I've said it to you before, but I will say it here again. Fuck those cunts. There's no better fuck you than you can give them other than come here and excel in the way that you have done. Because they will never ever reach a speck of what you've been able to achieve. Whether it's through your own personal life, or whether it's with work, or whether it's with the music of TRIVAX. You, simply by existing, are the biggest fuck you to those cunts. And they will never, ever be able to live as freely and as liberated as you do. And my man, it's fucking... I respect you so much, and it's my honor to call you a brother and have you on stage right next to me every time we fucking go up there and do it, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I need to take a deep breath now. it's so much. It's a lot to take in, man. And like I said, we don't always talk about this, so it's a lot, And I mean, what can you tell people? Like what did you learn from that? Like, let's say you are where you are now, and you're reflecting back on the events of, what was it, 12, 13 years ago? How do you, what do you take away from that?
I think my main takeaway from it is never lose your willpower. No matter what circumstance you go in, no matter what conditions you go through, if you've got your objective, if you've got your goal, you can reach it. No matter how complicated your life will become around you. I've had so many changes in my life between then and now on so many different aspects. In terms of relationships, friendships, careers, going through the arrest and everything. I've had so many different obstacles along the way, but all of that, none of it changed what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. In fact, it made even the opposite. It made me even stronger, and made me wanted to push even forward and push even further for it.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm on the same page as you on that. I think we've both had a lot of different events happen in our lives, but there's one thing that I think we always had in common, and it's exactly that, as you put it. And one thing that I always look at it, and I'm not saying that you or anyone else should look at this. This is just how I view my own life, and my fair share of what at the time were pretty dire struggles. But the way I look at it is, these things were all opportunities for me to grow and just become a better person. and it's that thing of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and
Yep.
we're diehards. It's a different it's a different fucking breed. Like, it'll just go on forever and forever. And as long as you have that, nothing can put that fire out, and you can conquer the whole world with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And I've seen you grow in that time as well. Just I mean, in the last 5-6 years. That how many years has it been now? 5 years? Yeah, feels like a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like TRIVAX never truly started until you joined the band. Do you remember when I called you that day when you left Sathamel, and I said to you, I said, listen, man, one day, as soon as the opportunity comes up, you are joining me in TRIVAX. Today might not be
Yeah.
that day, but that day will come soon. And I think that day came 2 months after that phone call.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah.
did.
And fucking what a ride it's been. What was it like coming over here at first, and then because there's one thing that I should also point out is that neither of us, despite our troublesome backgrounds, neither of us have ever been refugees here. So we've never claimed any kind of benefits from the government and whatnot. We've actually had to invest quite a lot. We've always worked, always studied, and that's how both you and I are here. So we've never taken anything from this from the government or the people here. If anything, we've given it a lot back. And all those guys complaining that we're taking their gigs and gothic girlfriends, they could have never had those things in the first place, whether we were here or not. So shut your fucking mouth. But but yeah, that's just how was it for you starting out here? Because you ended up moving to Brighton, and then yet somehow you ended up with the Yorkshire accent. So how the fuck does that work?
Yeah. So I moved to UK, to Brighton to go to college, and then I went to University of 4 year in Brighton, and then I ended up meeting my old partner, and ended up moving to Yorkshire, to Doncaster. Yeah, when I first moved here, I had no friends that I knew. I had no relatives, no one. It's the UK for me was completely alien country. The only thing that I knew was just English. I could speak English really well because I did at university back in Syria. Um, so yeah, I came here, start making new relationships with people and meeting new friends. Made friends in college from all over Europe, Spain, France, um, and then yeah, moved to Yorkshire, and then start making more British friends, and just just starting a new life from scratch, building that foundation based on nothing, based on that strength that I brought with me, knowing that I want to be here, I want to start a new life and do the stuff that I want to do. Maybe it could take me 5 years to be in a band again, and play music again. But it happened eventually. Took a while, but it got there in the end. Because it's not an easy thing when you come in here. You don't have any friends from like high school, where you originally were planning to form a band with them. Because that's how it happens in most cases. Teenagers or high school friends meet around and decide to start a band. I didn't really have that opportunity over here to do it from that sort of early stages. So yeah, and then stayed in Yorkshire since that time, and I'm still here. Just moved all over different parts of Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, North Yorkshire, West Yorkshire. So yeah,
God's country, yeah.
yep, the best place to live.
I do like Yorkshire a lot, definitely. Yeah, so I meant to ask you this as well, and I can't remember if you ever actually told me this, but was Sathamel the very first band that you joined, or were you in some other projects after you moved here?
No, it was the first proper project I got involved in since I moved to UK. Yeah,
How did you get into that?
it all happened by coincidence, really. I went to see a gig in Wakefield. Shining were playing there, Swedish Shining. It was really strange. Like the venue was really that kind of venue what Shining will play because they had like a proper nightliner and the venue was pretty small. So, but yeah, they were there and there were some people outside and we were just talking and I knew someone, and the guys knew like the same person. We just got introduced to them, and we got talking, and they were talking about looking for a new bass player for the band. And I said, well, I play some bass, but I haven't played in the band before. And they were like, oh, okay, cool. So we could maybe try to do like a couple of audition videos, a couple of songs to see how you get on. So yeah, all started from there. They sent me some stuff, and I've recorded a couple of videos and sent them over, and they were like, yeah, sounds good. We'll do like a proper live audition between all of us. So I went to Leeds and did a audition with them, and they were like, "Yeah, sounds really good." And yeah, it just happened from then, and we just start playing gigs pretty much straight after.
Was this the time they were called Sheol at first?
I think it was just after they changed from Shield to Safamel because I was talking to Nathan, the guitar player, at the time, and he mentioned like the name change and why they changed it. There was some backlash with another UK band they also called Sheol, and so yeah, they decided to change the name over to Safamel just to avoid any headaches or anything like that. The way he worded it. Then.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, we met because of that. We shared the stage. I don't know if we want to say the story of what 2014 Cheyenne was like, but yeah, we basically shared the stage with TRIVAX and Sathamel at the I think it was the South Sea in Broomhill in Sheffield, which is a different venue now, but that was interesting. I don't know. Is it worth telling the story of what I was like back then? Because I would feel explaining it, but yeah.
Yeah.
I was very different.
That's the only way to describe it. You were very dangerous then.
I was a very different... How should we put this diplomatically? I had a very different approach back in 2014. That's all.
Yeah, you did.
Basically, long story short, I think without getting into too much details of what happened, we came from Birmingham at the time because that's where all of the TRIVAX guys were based at that time, including me and Matt. Obviously, were still in the band, and yeah, we drove up from Birmingham, which I think in petrol at the time was probably something like, I don't know, 30-40 quid maybe. Which is obviously more now, I think, and yeah, obviously, of course, it's more. But yeah, we basically did that show, and the promoter came and gave us £3 coins in an envelope after the show. Remember that? Did you ever see that interaction?
Yeah.
The promoter came and gave us £3 coins in one envelope, and to which, like obviously at the time, I didn't know how to be a professional musician. I just knew how to be an artist, and I just knew that I liked chaos. So when that happened, I kind of maybe took a very destructive approach to the establishment afterwards, shall we say?
Yeah, and that's a very very civilized way to put it.
Sure. Okay, so we'll stick to that for now, and people can look into this later if they want to. But that was you and I's first introduction, and then we had to escape from the venue because we thought the sound guy was calling the police on me afterwards. Which I remember your ex-partner at the time came out and said the venue urgently need to speak to you guys, and I was like, okay then, nice to meet you guys, bye. Yeah, no, but it was an interesting introduction, and then that obviously led us all to make really good friends between the bands, and between all of the members, really. And then we ended up doing that Existence is Futile tour together, which for us was our first tour. I think it was the same for you guys as well, right?
Yep, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, which is awesome that we still, even though you weren't in TRIVAX, we still did our first actual tours together. That was pretty fucking cool.
Yep. Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah, and that was only
in like yesterday.
It fucking does. When I think of the last date in Birmingham at Scruffy's, that was 2nd of July, 2016.
2016.
Yeah. Fuck. I don't even know how I managed to keep up with those shows, considering how fucking fat I was at that time. It's a surprise and a miracle that I still managed to perform quite well, I think. by 2016 standards. But yeah, that was awesome. So I think that was for us one thing I always appreciated about it. And it was the same when we played in Nottingham again, and then when you guys supported us on the TRIVAX album launch show in Birmingham that same year. Like, we shared the stage so many times in that time period. What was great about it was just that I felt like every time I played with you guys, obviously that lineup only, like that lineup of Sathamel disintegrated completely a year after that, but which we'll get into. But at that time, what I always really enjoyed was every time we played with you guys, all of us felt like we had to play better, and there was no other band in the UK scene where we were like, yeah, these guys are cool enough to be on our level. You know what I mean? Like, it was only you guys that when we would play with, we'd be like, all right, it's these guys again. We need to fucking, even though we were close friends, it was the first time I experienced that healthy competition of what it's like to be sharing a stage with friends who you don't want to upstage you, and then it makes you want to play harder, and I think both of us got so much better as bands just from every time that we played those shows together, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There was definitely, excuse me, like a healthy competition between the two bands at the time. We played some cool shows, that's for sure. It was good memories.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I look back at those fondly. I'm sure it might be a little more different for you looking back at that because of the nature of the way things folded with that band in the end. But I think that still, for what it was really great. And then I think in around. Although one thing I will say is, I've said this before, but I always thought that band would have been so much better if you fronted it. So if you did bass and did vocals for that band, I think it would have been tremendous, because whenever you were doing like some of the backing vocal parts to it, there was just that sheer fucking force that would come out, and obviously you had a lot of like mostly slower riffs in like drop C, that you guys will be playing, and then you'd feel that wave coming out. I always thought it would have been so cool if you actually fronted the band rather than doing backing vocals over there. Did you think that would have? How do you think that would have worked out if you did that?
I think it would have been a different dynamic in the band. I think if I was fronting it, I would say at the time, because I think the way my vocals, the way I was doing vocals then, it was slightly different the way I do it now. The technique and the type of streams are more like a screechy, kind of proper old school, 90s black metal screeches.
Yes.
So yeah, it will definitely have been different. I think if it was the case, if I was like doing bass and vocals, like lead vocals in the band.
Yeah. Well, it was very strange because obviously the band, like Sathamel in 2017, looked like it was on this uprise of, you could see it getting bigger, you can see shirts of the band at every show, and then boom, just before the release of the debut album, you've got all of this hype. This very, very strange event happens. Well, I guess the event had already happened before that, but it became public, and then all of a sudden there was this very weird attention, which is such a strange thing. Like, I've thought about this a lot since then. Well, not a lot, but like you sometimes just think about it. It's like, oh yeah, how fucking weird was that? And I've never actually known another case of this happen, where a band gets done for plagiarism in the same degree that Sathamel did. So tell us the story for anyone who's hearing this for the first time. What was that actually like from your perspective? So here you are, you've been through your whole journey, you've gone through everything. Now you have the opportunity to release the first full-length album that you've ever been a part of, and there's this massive hype around it, and then boom, this whole thing happens. Tell us what that experience was like.
Yeah, it all happened by someone posting a comment on the band's page. I think it was like a not rehearsal, it was like a playthrough video, I believe. I think, if I remember rightly. and someone posted a link for a song for another band. What's this about? So I clicked on it and I started listening to the other bands. A Hills to Die Upon. For anyone who doesn't know, that's a US Christian black and death metal band.
Yeah, A Hill to Die Upon. That's right. Yeah,
A Hill to Die Upon. Yes. And then I was listening, like, it sounds really similar. Let's listen a bit more. Just kept listening. Is that the same song? But it's not the same band. So when you're in like that quick shock and you like your mind is not processing things the way it's supposed to be because you're in a massive shock. You're like, this is not right. So we started obviously on between us messaging on the group chat and messaging Matt and Alex and Nathan and everybody and Dan, and they're like, guys, what's going on here? Any idea? Nathan, can you give some, provide some light on these, dreadful events? What's going on here? And he said, I'm not really sure, so we've had to check and see what's going on. So we looked into that, and funnily enough, one of the guys that they posted the video, I don't think it was the person who posted it, it was one of the members from the band. He tagged one of the members alongside the video. So I put the video and then he tagged him. I think it was the frontman actually from the band, the main guy.
Someone commented on Sathamel's post, posted another song by A Hill to Die Upon and tagged the frontman from A Hill to Die Upon, and it turned out to be the song that band had released, I think in 2009.
Yeah, I think it was, 2009.
Okay. And it was pretty much, was it for this Sathamel song, was it The Evangelist? Was that the one that sounded off the alarms?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, that was the first one that came to light. And then all of a sudden the thing just went viral. All of a sudden people say, oh, do you know that the thing is on Reddit? Like, Reddit? Are you for real? It's we're not even like it. If it was like a really big band, something like that would go like viral straight away. But the band wasn't really that known in like the wider metal scene in Europe or UK. And the thing went on Reddit. People like commenting, so many black people from US and all over UK just commenting on there, and shaming and saying all that like plagiarism and stealing riffs, and it was just listen to it. Even if someone who's not a musician or understand the music, listen to 2 songs, they will think it's the same band. Maybe the production is slightly more modern on that because it was like recorded a few years after. That's the only difference, really. But
Sam's a great producer too, who actually ended up producing the TRIVAX album later. Yeah.
Yep. So like listen to it, the song structure, the the notes, the lyrics was different because it was written by Dan. I think that was the only kind of legitimate part of the music that wasn't plagiarized. And it's just things went things just went tits up from then. Obviously we wanted to have like a meeting with everybody just to get some kind of clarification on the subject. Ended up meeting up, and we kind of confronted Nathan and said, what's all this about?
Why did you confront him out of everyone else in the band?
Because I was going to come to this point. So basically, with the writing process of the album, just for the for the reference, so there's no any kind of future accusations comes towards me, or Alex Taylor or Matt Holmes. Neither of us, or Aaron Hayes, neither of us were involved in the writing process of any of the songs on that album. We were involved in recording. We all recorded our instruments and we all recorded our vocals, but neither of us were involved in the writing process of the songs themselves. Not Nathan. He was the only one. There was no one else involved in that process. We were getting tabs from him every few days during the period before we got full recordings done, and learning the songs, digesting everything, and then
you were doing it on like Guitar Pro tabs, weren't you? He was sending you Guitar Pro tabs, and that's how you were learning the songs.
Guitar Pro tabs, learning the songs, getting them tight, and then going to rehearse a few times just to get the live feeling, and then do like the recording session afterwards. So that's how it happened. And then when we asked, like, what's, have you actually stolen the riffs? And he's just like coming out with some like really kind of unbelievable excuses. We're saying, oh, I think it was like an old guy where we used to have like some ideas before, and they were his ideas, and I used some of them on the hard drive without having any like knowledge that it was ripped off from another band. And
Who was this other guy? Because I don't remember anyone else being a part of the band before.
No, so like the people that I knew, like especially guitar players, it was like last one was Alex when I was still in the band, but he joined very very late into the process. He didn't even record anything off the music. I think he may have recorded some solos and stuff on the album, but apart from that, he wasn't really involved even recording process. Aaron did some recordings, and the guy before Aaron called Peter, but I've never met him. It was before I joined them. And when we asked it, was it him? They were like, no, it was another guy. So it was just it was really kind of shady discussion where we couldn't really get anything and it sense out of him. But also because we were all bandmates and we believed our bandmate, like, no, surely he can't do such a thing. It will like destroy the band, right. It will destroy its reputation. We all kind of like believed in him and backed him up. Where people like talking shit about him, we all like said, no, he's not doing anything like that. And then things getting a bit more like died down a little bit a few weeks after. But obviously we're all still fully devastated after all the hard efforts we did. We had to record the album 3 times. We had some issues like with the clean signals from like guitar and bass when we recorded at home first. It was too loud, so we had to re-record again the full thing, and it was too quiet. So it was the interface what we were using. It was just not good. So we went again to the studio to record, and I had issues with my intonation issues with my old bass. So we had to do it again on a different 5-string Fender bass where I've never used before. I had to record an album on the spot in the recording studio. There you go. That's a 5-string Fender. You need to record it on this. Like, okay, yeah, I just did it. So yeah, so the process wasn't like very straightforward. We had a lot of obstacles and complications along the way. And then after all that effort, and time and money and we invested, and it was just all went down the drain, really. Like it never existed, all that work we've done, because it wasn't ours. We were just basically recording cover songs off another band that recorded it 10 years ago at the time.
That's such a tragic fucking thing, man, and what a thing to even be associated with, like you said. I remember when you guys were going out there saying, like, oh yeah, this is never, this is not our guy. This is some misunderstanding. But then you listen to the songs and it's like, okay, yeah, no, this is note by note identical. This, I think, on The Evangelist, I think there was, I even did a guest solo on that, which he ended up doing a very similar variation of what I did, but then turned it into a melody and then re-recorded it himself, which I was like, that's fine, whatever. But I don't know if that was another form of plagiarism, but to me it was very, very sad, because I was I was like, fuck, our guys are about to take off here. And then when that happened, I couldn't make sense of it. Like you said, like when you said you're listening to the song and it's the same notes, but it's like, what's going on here? And I think I had a similar experience, and I didn't even play in the band. Or I remember listening to it, seeing all the online comments and being like, what's going on here? And then seeing like there's this massive thing about it, and then seeing like these long statuses start popping up all over the place. It's like, oh, what the fuck is that? And then it kept saying like, oh, there's an old member. Then Aaron had already left by that point, so I remember Aaron having a tantrum saying like, it's not me. Yep. Like you need to fucking go and publicly say this is not me, because Aaron was the old guitarist, and Aaron actually wrote some really good songs for the band previously as well. I think, was it Venus Morningstar, if I remember correctly? Yep. That was his song, and that was always a really good one. You guys played, but then all of a sudden, and then obviously he then came out and clarified. It's like, oh yeah, it's not Aaron. And like you said, okay, it's not that Paul guy. Okay, so and then it's not you, it's not Matt, it's not Dan, it's not Alex. So it's a very, like I mean, people can look at this for themselves, but it's a strange situation. But what I feel sorry for is all of you guys that put in all of that hard work, and then that crashes. All of the money that you all invested in. I mean, you had all of the CDs printed and T-shirts as well, right?
Yep.
And what did you
It was
do
all
with
ready
that?
to get shipped out. It was all like the orders were ready to get shipped. All like the pre-orders and everything. That's probably like 50 pre-orders were all ready to get posted. Like maybe 3 days after like we discovered after the release date. So it was quite lucky. I think no, actually no. If I remember, I think we did send a few of them, but we had to like retrace all the ones that we sent out already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember now.
I remember I had, because I donated to the campaign. I don't know if you had a campaign or if it was a CD or something, but I remember I had sent some payments, and then I think the guys were refunding those, and I said, keep that, man, like total support to you guys and everything. But obviously at that point, I still wasn't really sure what had happened. I just bought into the whole thing of, oh, it's an old member that's tried to steal this, but it's kind of one of them that you realize certain things, you sit on it long enough, and then it's like you said, nah, it can't be. But then it's like,
No.
oh, okay, wait. I mean, I even, I spoke to the guy about it, and I said, did you actually steal the riffs? You remember? Because we shared the stage a couple of years later when they came back for a while. I don't think they were back out for very long. Yeah, it's a very strange one. It's a very strange one, and you know what though? With that in mind, I think good for all of you guys, because at least you got away from it, and you all pursued your own paths in other places, and did great things. Obviously, I am more than happy about the fact that you ended up in TRIVAX. I think I don't need to repeat this many more times, but that I guess it kind of worked out. I think you and I were meant to be doing this, but also even our friend Matt Holmes, he's done a lot of fucking great work since then. Obviously, I played with him in Weird Stuff for a little while, but also what he's doing in Insidious now, I think that's fantastic, and Hecate Enthroned as well, obviously. And, it's just kind of one of them things. It's a very strange things that happens in life. And, there's the saying, and this is one of my favorite sayings of all time, and it's that all people are teachers. And what that really means is that people teach you not just by what to do, but also what not to do. And seeing something like that so karmically unfold the way that it did, merely days before the release of the album at that level, makes you think like, okay, there's something to having integrity. There is something to having authenticity, and there is something to just being straight up and honest and just not lying about things. And I think it's exactly that, and
Yep.
And it's one of those situations that makes me believe in karma more than anything. Because how many times have bands, ripped off riffs or songs or pieces of lyrics
Yeah.
from each other? Or a lot of times it's just mere inspiration, like so much of. I mean, I consider Darkthrone to be a legendary band, and so many of their riffs are merely Celtic Frost, Motorhead, and it's like, that's great, fucking fine, by all means, they're still authentic in their way of expression, but to take someone's full song, thinking, oh, this is an obscure band, no one will hear this, and then copy and paste it, and then get your band to learn it without telling them the origin of this, and then perform that song. To me, that's like, that defeats the entire purpose of being a musician in the first place. It's almost like the negative in no way outweighs the positive. Because it's not like even those songs were anything groundbreaking. One thing I always said about you guys, and I said this to you when you were in the band, because I'm just direct like that. But I always said that what I liked about the band wasn't even so much the songwriting, because I actually at times thought it was just very simple and straightforward. But I loved about it was was the energy that you guys had, with Matt strumming and you and everyone. It's just that energy that I thought you were a great live band. But to then find out that those songs didn't even belong to the band is kind of like, well, what can you do? What can you do? It's a very strange one.
What's the point? What's the point of doing it if you don't have your own music?
Yeah, exactly. Like, why go through the trouble of paying for these CDs to be printed, doing all the networking to do the shows, traveling all the miles when you're not even really playing your own riffs? Why do that? I don't understand. I never will, probably.
Me neither. Yeah, it's never makes sense, really, the way it was done. Yeah.
No. But on a point of, I guess, retribution and purely making up for things, at least you'll finally get to release your first full-length album that you've been a part of now.
Yep, finally.
Finally, right?
That time. Yeah, it's been a long way coming, really.
Yeah. So Eloah Burns Out is the first album. It's not TRIVAX's first album, although in a sense I feel like we may as well consider it the first one because it's a totally different animal. It's something else, and I think it's the trajectory of probably our lives to some extent will change soon. Like I have no expectations as such, but just the fact that we leveled up to the place that we did to even come up with this thing and to execute it and to create it, I think makes for a very, very special situation, and I couldn't be more proud of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, and I think to everyone else listening as well, this is our maybe at some point in the future we'll outdo this, but as it stands, this is our best work yet with TRIVAX. Like I said, it's almost now our debut album in a way.
Yep. Maybe debut with a current lineup. You can call it this way.
Yeah, the rebirth of TRIVAX.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. What do you think, since we're talking and people are listening, what do you think we can give them a thing to look out for on this one? Because I'm always talking about it. I've done so many different podcasts and interviews, and I've talked to so many other people. But in your perspective, what do you think is something that people can expect from this album, if they can expect anything?
It's very violent album, and it's the direction it took in comparison to Sin. It's a very a massive change, and it's a massive development in the band's musical career as well as ours. It's the way the concepts laid out throughout the tracks. There's so much diversity in between, but at the same time, it's kind of like a storytelling, but through different concepts from the beginning to the end. So I'm really excited for people to hear the whole thing. It's going to be very, very good, I think. It's going to be very exciting.
Absolutely. I kind of feel, we're at this crazy point where we've been working on this thing behind the scenes for so long. We've got the video out now, so at least people got some taste of it, but it's still a total of 50 minutes of music that people are still yet to hear. And I think that from a lyrical perspective and many other things, I think it's both. I agree, it's very violent, but it is also very retrospective, it's very melancholic, and it is, I think that I just couldn't be damn more fucking proud of it, man. And and I think this is like, if we never get to release another album after this, I'm happy with that. But I'm sure that we will. But in case we don't, in case some shit happens, in case World War III hits, or some bizarre situation fucking happens, or we get wanted because of the Azrael video, and then we get assassinated by some fucking extreme Islamist cunts, I'll be happy that we left this thing behind. It's a powerful album.
Yep.
So there we go.
Yeah, man. Same. I would say the same thing. If anything happens, if I don't know, any of us die, it could happen if any of us, for any reason, can't do another release. Listen, I'm kind of pleased I've actually been involved in such a powerful thing. That's going to be delivered to so many people. Appreciate the hard work behind it as well.
Well, there's a lot of fucking hard work, that's for sure. We can spare the details here, but a lot of work went into this, from every different aspects of it, from the photo shoots to the video to the recording to the different levels of recording. I mean, we recorded this thing all over the UK, and then still corresponded with like other places, other producers, with Iran, with Norway, and it's just crazy, like this will I'm sure will hopefully continue to create albums that are true to us as much as this one was, and try and outdo ourselves, but they will never be another Eloah Burns Out. So that I can safely say, and I urge everyone to check it out. And on a very mundane point as well, I'm fucking so stoked just to be able to share this with people who want to use it as their gym noise, if you will.
Yeah, it should be good. I'd highly recommend it. Once it's out, it's definitely gym lifting music, especially heavy weights.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, buddy.
Lightweight.
Lightweight! Yes, man. Fucking gonna be great, I think. Especially, my personal favorite is always Alpha Predator, the second track. That's if you don't hit a PR with that song, you're probably never gonna hit a PR in the first place. And one thing that's always cool is the feedback, the really positive feedback actually, that we always get about people coming up to us or sending messages saying how they find it inspiring that we do what we do just for fitness. I mean, we're probably quite selfish about it, and we do it for ourselves, but just by sharing that is really, I always think that's so awesome to hear, when people come up and say things like that, and then you can see their progress as well. And it's like, oh shit, that's really awesome. That's one thing, it almost has nothing to do with music, but I love it. Like, those interactions are so good, I think.
Yeah, they are. I mean, in a way, like when you're even posting a video of you, doing any kind of progression, cutting or bulking or lifting weight or doing a deadlift in the gym, someone else watch it. Okay, I'm getting some kind of inspiration from that person. To me, I'm not a PT by any means, but people come to me and say, "Oh, you guys are inspiring me, and I started lifting because of this." So, like, it makes you feel really happy, even though that wasn't like the main intention or the purpose behind it, really.
Yeah, I think that's such a powerful thing, because to me, like lifting and getting in good shape, obviously, because both of us, we used to be on the opposite ends of the spectrum, I think, but in unhealthy ways, like I used to be super overweight. You used to be, well, probably a bit of everything,
Super
but I
skinny.
remember, yeah, back in like 2017, you were literally like I don't know, you were like a match. You were so skinny, I remember, and
Yep.
and it's like. I would have never imagined how you were back then ever being able to deadlift like, I don't know, 200 kilos like you would now or something. It's just fucking crazy. But to me, I think it's also, it might seem, if you're not used to the culture of lifting and just being into good fitness and health, it might seem a little alien, but I just find it to be mentally and spiritually like one of the most liberating things ever. So it's actually like, for us, it works perfectly into what it is that we do, and just our our whole thing, everything that we talked about earlier, with Syria, Iran, and going through everything here, why we do what we do. This is just one additional thing that works perfectly aligned with that, because it is something that gains you that bit of freedom and confidence, and just knowing that you have your own life in your own hands and you're willing to go through the difficulty for it. So the more people that end up doing this, I think that's a beautiful thing, which is again another reason why I'm currently in the process of becoming a PT myself, is because you realize how much that helps you mentally, first of all. So it's like, why not promote it further? Why not encourage people to do it? Even though until now we've sort of just accidentally done it just by, I guess, just by doing it for ourselves and perhaps unintentionally leading by example, really.
Yep. That's it.
I mean, it is a very enjoyable process anyway, just to sort of test your own boundaries and see where it is you can push yourself as a person, and then just see, like what it is you can turn yourself into. It's really fascinating. So much stuff that you wouldn't have thought is possible some years ago. Now you see yourself doing it, and it's like, oh shit, all right, so it is possible, And then I find what it does is it bleeds into other areas of life. So it's like when you get confident at being able to develop your own physique in your own hands and your own time and hard work and discipline and consistency, then you realize, oh, okay, so I can do the same thing with business. I can do the same thing with relationships, because that's something that also takes effort as well. That's the only way it works. But that's a conversation for another day, obviously. But and it applies to the band as well. It's like it's something that takes militant and sickening consistency to be able to do what it is
and
that we
progressive as well. Progressive growth,
Exactly.
I'm not talking about bodybuilding. I'm talking about anything, even with a band. That progression is happening all the time. It's growing musically. Playing better places, playing new places. That growth is happening because of that progression. So that fundamental can be implemented in different aspects of life, not just like in fitness and bodybuilding.
I couldn't agree more. It's like our PR as a band now is so much higher than it was like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, because we're lifting heavy weights. That's why.
Yeah.
That's the only logical reason behind it.
What I meant was the stages that we're playing on, but yeah, that too. Yeah, we've gone from playing the Griffin in Bristol to playing the Quantic in Bucharest, Romania. So I think that's something to be proud of, I guess.
Yeah.
That was such a fucking sick gig. I gotta listen, man. I gotta have you back on here at some other time just to talk about TRIVAX shit. I feel like we've barely talked about that, but in a way, I actually think that's perfect, because finally people will get to hear you speak and they get to know your story. And as I already mentioned earlier, man, I couldn't be more proud of what we do, but also just proud of all of us, for our own personal trials and tribulations that's led us to here, and how we've got this shared vision. And it's a powerful thing. It's kind of like, I've always been so fucking tunnel vision. Sometimes you just don't really take the time to appreciate what it is that you have. But I think what we have is a powerful thing, and it's awesome. Even though, like, I can say, like, oh yeah, I came up with the band name, wrote these songs and blah 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 blah. Yeah, okay, but I am still a part of something. I'm a part of something with all of you guys, and it's such a fucking privilege to have that, and I couldn't be more happy about it, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, man. Likewise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely going to. Yeah, so I was saying it's only going to get better, really.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so, or worse. We'll see.
Yeah, you never know.
Yes, we will see. Right, so, my man, thank you so much for jumping on Iblis. I don't know. This is usually I conclude these, and even though the conversations are so casual, I always conclude them in what I feel is a bit of a formal way. But I guess it's still fair to ask for the is to get your input. But any last words you might have for the audience you might want them to hear?
I would say, if you keep your willpower strong, if you believe in yourself, you will achieve what you want, no matter how difficult your surroundings are. That's always been my motto to go to.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the final wise words of my brother Sully as we bring this episode to a closing. If you're interested in supporting the work of TRIVAX and what we do, you're more than welcome to head over to our Bandcamp page, where we have tons of different merchandise and t-shirts available. All of the funds will be put back into the work of TRIVAX so that we can grow our movement. And if you also enjoyed this conversation, please do consider sharing this story around if it resonates with you in any way. And both myself and Sully do hope to run into some of you at the upcoming shows. Just a reminder that our album launcher will be taking place at the Cosmic Void in London, and we will soon be revealing more details about that. As we bring this episode to a close, there is one famous quote by Benjamin Franklin that I would like to bring to you. And it's that those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to always remember that freedom is always worth fighting for, regardless of the price. Now, that price can be our safety, our comfort, our relationships, and perhaps even our lives. But that price is always worth paying for. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay free.